All right, and we are back. So now we know where the internet came from, why it's called the internet, and what the F we are doing when we type in HTTP and www into our browsers to get to our Pinterest boards. Trust me, soon we will be out of the woods and into way more complicated stuff. So right now, just enjoy the relative simplicity while it lasts. So what does the rest of the browser mean, and where am I getting my information from when I upload a photo of my cat to iCloud? To explain this, let's go over some softballs and learn some easy concepts. First off, you need to know the difference between three terms as they relate to computers. These I guarantee you will use and hear. They are three things: client, node, and server. Okay, so let's say I'm using a computer to download a Kindle book from Amazon. In this scenario, my computer is what we call a client, as it's the device in a transaction receiving the information. And whatever machine in Seattle that stores the book and is now sending it to me is then called the server. Any machine that book crosses through to get to me from its origin point is called a node. Now, earlier when I said two LAN networks connected together through an intermediary forms what is essentially the internet, that intermediary I just referenced would be considered a node. Keep in mind, these terms are just relative. You might think, but I bought a machine called a server and it said server on the box when I bought it. You might think that that's a server. Well, yeah, it is most likely, and they most likely call it that because it's designed to store and send information. But if I decided to upload information, let's say from my computer to that server, guess which one technically now in this new arrangement is called the server? If you said the server in the box, no, you're wrong, it's the computer. The server in this instance then flips roles and it's called the client. If I transferred information from my phone to my computer, guess what my phone would be called? It would be called a server. It serves the information. It's kind of confusing, and I suggest you don't think about it too much. It's just an important set of terms you'll need to know, and it'll help you eventually. What you do need to know is that the internet is made solely of those three pieces we just went over: clients, servers, and nodes. In the vast majority of cases, information stored on a large machine is on request transferring information to your laptop, server transferring to a client. In most cases, that is just purely simple enough. Want to watch a movie on Netflix? Well, Netflix has a big server you connect to, and it transfers that data from their big old server to your computer. But what exactly happens in the middle of that transfer? Well, a bunch of nodes happen. For the sake of your sanity, you only really need to understand three nodes in this process. The first one is what's called an internet service provider, also called an ISP in cool tech lingo. The second one you need to understand is what's called a modem, and the third one you need to understand is what's called a router. For all intents and purposes, just think about it this way: information, every time you request it and receive it, it must pass through these three things to get to your computer. So let's start with the first one. What is an internet service provider in this weird web of relationships? Well, I guarantee you interact with one and you probably have at least a mild dislike for the one you use. Internet service providers like a Comcast or a Time Warner, or actually even back in the day, AOL, are essentially mega hubs for distributing and connecting computers across the country. But what exactly as an entity do they do? Well, let me explain it by explaining how the internet used to work, and then it'll make more sense. Let's say back in the day, you wanted to get the news from your local CBS news station. Well, in order to do that, you would need to connect a physical line to that CBS news station from your computer. What if you wanted to transfer a music file to your friend down the street without Metallica suing you? Well, you would need a physical cable running to their house. At some point in the internet's development, several large companies all kind of came to the same conclusion that it's materially impossible to connect every single house to every single house. So it'd actually make more sense if we created one big hub that's local that everyone connected to instead, and then to connect the hubs to each other, you don't have to have as many wires. That process cost money, and after all, it's millions of dollars in new lines that have to be put in the ground, and that's what the inexplicable charge on your monthly credit card statement is from. True story, back in the day, some neighborhoods would actually pitch in together to buy cable lines and to make their own little happy neighborhood hub. Anyway, okay, so that is the first node you need to understand, ISPs, or that company you probably hate. The second node is that thing that keeps blinking in your house and you have no idea what it's doing. That thing is called your modem. With pretty much everything in this course, there are a million things I could tell you, but there are not a million things you need to know. A modem is a very complicated piece of equipment, but you don't need to know how it works, basically. A modem is just a device that is permanently connected to your ISP and is used to send and receive information through your ISP hub. When your internet goes out, it's often just the modem, since it's the intermediary, just acting up. It is not that the internet has dried up.
Well, I'm gonna sit down at that internet and just start emailing.
Contrary to what some people believe. All right, you made it so far. That is the second node, and there's only one more we have to tackle. This last piece is the complement to your modem. It's called the router. I bet you didn't even know the difference between the two. Oh, you did? Yeah, no, you didn't. You don't work for Comcast. The router is merely the hub that allows all devices and systems in one area or room to connect to the same connection through the modem. You don't need a modem for every single computer you own, you just need one router. The router in most cases today is what takes that internet transfer and then transfers it through that magical wavelength called Wi-Fi. But remember, you can always still connect directly to the router with a cord and a pinch. Routers do exactly what they sound like. They route traffic so that multiple devices can use one permanent connection with an internet service provider. So a modem just acts as a bus that transfers information from your ISP and then converts it from your coaxial, you know, that circular cord that you use to actually plug into your TV, that's what they use, to something that's actually usable by your computer. It's also effectively the bouncer to both your computer and your internet service provider. It regulates what connects through it and who gets access to what. Modems are pretty effective, at least, hence why most hackers try to compromise the router piece instead. Okay, I know that's a ton of information, but let's recap it. When you want to download a web page, what exactly happens? Well, the information you request is stored somewhere on a server, most likely owned by the company you're trying to access or by a web host that owns tons of servers and then leases it out to companies. That information is then transferred to an internet service provider, which is a company you most likely pay a monthly fee to that is in charge of acting as a hub between all of the devices and cables in your local area. From there, it transfers it to your home, first through the modem, and then through a router to get to the right device. And it does all of that, what I just described, in well under a second. I'm really sorry if that was boring or tedious, but guess what? You never have to learn that again because now you know. Next lecture, we're gonna add more layers to understanding and start getting into how servers and computers know where to send and request their information. If you're not excited by that, well, you're normal. All right, see you then.